What's been going on? Shoot, man, so many different things. It's not even just crypto, man. Like basically anything online, real estate. I'm sure you're well aware is
Yeah.
blowing up like crazy. It's so. Is that? Did you guys want to talk specifically about like finance and investments type of thing? Is that like
Sure,
the
man. Why
you
not?
want to
Go
go
for it.
into? Right
Yeah, I
into
know
it. All right.
you're the guy in like everything, man. You dabble in everything.
Bro, like it's like it's just natural interest and it just kind of takes shape, I guess, right? But yeah, we can dive into everything. I think let's dive into real estate first, and then we'll go into crypto, and we can kind of go and take it from there.
Yeah.
But to start off with, though, did you guys have any specific questions you had also in mind in terms of like maybe a specific area you wanted to know about or something? I'm just curious.
Yeah. Well, for like one, um, like a few people I talk to, like they're into stocks and stuff or whatever.
Mm.
But usually when I ask them, like, "Oh, you into like crypto and stuff?" You're like, "I have no idea."
Oh yeah,
There's still some people who can't wrap their mind around it.
exactly. No, and
Yeah.
that's perfectly fine. I would say that probably 95% of the world still doesn't really understand it. I
Yeah.
think what most people know is that somehow crypto was nothing, it turned into something. People are making money off of it because they see the gains. I mean,
Yeah.
very simple. Like you can definitely follow the price of a $4,000 Bitcoin to a $65,000 one, currently sitting at around 48,000 last time I checked. Those are huge gains.
Ridiculous.
Like pretty. If you bought one last year, you could probably buy, I don't know, a really nice car this year. Right? You know what I mean? That's just a car, and with one. So I think when it comes to crypto specifically, and it's funny because now that people are talking about it, people are seeing the gains and the utility of it. A lot of people are now interested in it, right? So I have been having different conversations with people, and to me, it's really interesting because it seems to me like yeah, the general population doesn't really know about it, but I feel like if you start to kind of connect the dots from what people do know, it starts to make sense, right?
Yeah.
So I always try to start off with like, why is crypto important? Why is it relevant? What is the utility, right? And a way to look at it is basically I do an analogy. So you guys remember back in the day when you used to use the internet, but it was dial-up, so you couldn't actually like speak on the phone like while you were using the internet. Because if you tried to talk, you just hear like like you
Yeah.
couldn't, right?
Of course.
So obviously now that's not a problem. Like I could literally pull up my phone on the same phone. I could pull up the internet and still talk to someone. Like these are advancements in technology, right?
Yeah.
So I would say that that's better. It's better now than it was before. So with cryptocurrency, it's kind of the same thing. The money system that we have currently in place, like the cash, I don't have any cash to show you guys right now, but
Yeah.
the dollars, the coins, all of that system is really antiquated. It's old. And so when we begin to push this digitalization of currency, all of a sudden the possibilities they blow up. They're endless. I mean, have you guys heard of the whole thing with like NFTs?
Yeah.
I'm sure you
I've been
have.
trying to
Like
get into that. Like it's
it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
So it goes back to the technology. So cryptocurrency is a way to use blockchain technology, right?
Yeah.
That's the technology. So think about it like your phone, right? Like your phone allows you to go on the internet, it allows you to take pictures, it allows you to shop on Amazon, do all sorts of things, do transfers if you want. So think of it as like blockchain is the technology, right? And what we do with blockchain is we can take it and start applying it to different things to do different things. So the utility becomes important in that sense. And to understand blockchain is basically the value of it comes from the trustworthiness of it. It's secure. Like you can literally think of it almost like a chain. It's like it's a logical chain that makes things secure. That's why it works really well with cryptocurrency because I mean, I don't know if do you guys know what a ledger is by any chance? Like a bank ledger or like
Yeah.
where you track transactions. So essentially what we did with cryptocurrency is we took a ledger and we put it on the blockchain. So the blockchain allows us to make everything secure. So for instance, in this case, let's say I have my digital wallet, you have your digital wallet. I don't know, someone Chris Julian has his digital wallet. That's a good example, right? So if I wanted to send you one Bitcoin, I simply go to the network, and by going to the network, I mean use your computer, and you say, I want to send Paris one Bitcoin. So in order to do that, though, I need your wallet address, right? Like I need like the actual address of where you're storing, your currency.
Unique ID.
Exactly. That unique ID is actually stored on the blockchain.
Yeah.
So that's why like you can't just change it. I can't just be like, oh, I'm Paris now because because you hold your own keys. That private address has its own private information, and you're the only one that has access to it, right? Not even the government. And like I think later on, eventually, I can tell you some crazy
Yeah.
stories because like the thing is when real money starts to be involved, people get crazy. Like I've heard stories of like homicide. I've heard like bank robbing stories, like digital bank robbing stories. It's crazy
Yeah.
because it's real money. So anyway, so like I send it to you. What happens is that ledger that I was telling you about, because there's a network, it's distributed amongst all the different computers in the world. Bitcoin is known as a decentralized network.
Yeah.
There's computers here in China, Europe, everywhere. That's what makes it so powerful. Is that a large portion of these computers can validate that it is you, Paris. It's because that's the thing. It's like, you can program anything. You can tell your computer, okay, do this, do this, do this. But because there's a lot of computers that are involved that are working on the same thing, they can validate that you are Paris and this is your address. And so when I send the submission through, they'll say, okay, he does have that amount of Bitcoin. It goes through, okay, this is a valid address, this Paris's address. Okay, let's send the transaction. And all of a sudden I sent you 1 Bitcoin. But that's the whole concept of it. It's decentralized. It allows for a very quick and easy way to send payments.
Yeah.
So I could literally send you $5 worth of Bitcoin, or $1 million, or $2 or $1 billion worth of Bitcoin, and no one's going to say anything because the network just sees it as a thing it does, right? Try to do that with the bank. If you try to go to the bank, withdraw $10,000, they're going to flag it and they're going to start asking you questions. And if you want that in cash, good luck. And then if you want to draw a bank draft for maybe $100,000, same thing. It's like, can I see your ID? Can I see this? Bro, like what year are we in? And this is the whole idea with cryptocurrency specifically. It's that we're using this blockchain technology. Again, remember, it's like the technology, like the phone. We're using this technology to enable us to do the things that we were already doing, but way, way better, right? Because now that's like the top layer. All of a sudden, you can start diving deeper. So what another aspect of it is something called smart contracts. What that is think of it like you guys have used soda machines, right? Like where you go and you put in a quarter or sorry, I guess a loonie, and then it gives you a soda pop, right? Sometimes it doesn't come out, right?
Everything like $5 now.
Bro, I've gone and sometimes the chips don't come out, and like then you start hitting the machine, right?
Yeah, how do you prove you actually put the money in?
I'm not gonna call someone for $1, bro. Like that's crazy.
Yeah, I know people who have, but it's like
I know. I hear you. I hear you.
Cheap,
though.
I mean,
no, I know what you mean though. But this is the thing with blockchain technology is that it allows us to begin to create these sorts of systems similarly. So, for instance, let's say like I don't know, you're supposed to do some sort of contract work or whatever.
Yeah.
I can make it so that on the blockchain it says, okay, pay Paris a Bitcoin or 10 Bitcoins, whatever amount, when he completes this task, right? And then as soon as the network can validate it, it's like, okay, it completed. He, I don't know, he handed in his homework. Now you're going to get 10 Bitcoin, whatever it is the task is. And you can start to really build on top of this because this is a small example, but when you start thinking about what the actual finance system is like and how they work, all of a sudden, like, bro, you're saving, I'd say, billions of dollars if they actually use this technology. In the same way that, again, our phones give us so much value now. Like imagine having a smartphone back in like the 1900s. You're literally like the smartest person in the world now because you're the only one that has that technology. But that's the thing. It's like it's the value of the utility that it's bringing into our lives. So that's kind of like what's been going on with cryptocurrency. And getting into like the timeline. Do you guys remember like way back when let's say like Amazon or Microsoft or all these companies were kind of rising up? Like when was the last time you heard about Amazon, or the first time you heard about Amazon? Do you guys remember?
Actually, I always used to hear about Amazon Books.
Amazon Books, right? You remember that,
like,
right?
Maybe before like 2010,
right?
Somewhere around there.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a really good thing. I actually had forgotten that, but now that you mentioned it, so Amazon started off as a book selling company. That's literally all they're specialized in. But the reason Jeff Bezos is where he is right now is because he realized that it's not just about selling. Like, yeah, you can buy and sell books and you can do it, like the dope man gets paid. Like you can buy and sell and make money that way. But he can look at it, if you look at it from a different perspective, like what other value can I extract from what I'm doing. And he basically went huge on data analysis. So he realized like, okay, so this type of buyer is going to buy this many times. You know what I mean? It started to get very like logical, very he started to use algorithms, and this made it so that he all of a sudden had a huge data that you could actually use to even make better sales basically, and approach your customer better and be like, okay, you can extract more value from the customer by doing it. And up until this point, it's true now for like your social media. Like everybody knows that if I'm talking about, I don't know, Victoria's Secret, I'm probably going to get ads for Victoria's Secret on my phone now, right? Which I don't mind, that's fine, but like
I don't know, man. Somebody's watching me.
but that's, you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
this is what Jeff Bezos realized back in the day when he was selling books. And because you could apply this to not just books but other areas, all of a sudden Amazon turned into like a $1 billion company from like nothing, literally, right? And that's the thing that we're seeing right now with cryptocurrency, where it's like, believe it or not, even though Bitcoin has been out for about 12 years or so. Fun fact, it's like the best performing asset if you would have owned it 10 out of the 12 years. If you would have bought it anytime 10 out of the 12 years, like you'd be killing it in terms of value. Like,
yeah, it was one of the worst performing ones too.
It's
people did not want to mess with it.
Because that's the thing, is like they're not willing to take the time to understand, right? Like you got to understand that most people, I talk to people and they're like, oh no, it's just most people are stupid, or most people. No, I don't think it's that necessarily. It's just most people have lives, bro. Like most people have their kids, have a house, they have their responsibilities that they don't really, when they do have the free time, they don't really care to learn about cryptocurrency.
Yeah,
so
it's hard, man.
As a matter of fact, like I commend you for like bringing this conversation, because I think the more educated you are in this sense, the better you will be for the future, right? In terms of how you're investing, what decision making. I was telling someone yesterday, I was like, if I would have taken all the money I spent on Jordans, even though I actually got most of it back because like I was a collector, but if I would have taken even half of it and put it on Bitcoin, bro, we'd be having a different conversation, right? But that's the thing, is like me recognizing, I'm learning still, but now that I know better, now I can start making better decisions.
Yeah,
right?
and that's usually the issue, because it's like you go in high school, you just got $20, $100, you just spend it on whatever.
That's
it. And they always made it seem like invested in like stocks and all that it was so ridiculous. Like you need so much money. So a lot of people never really look into that. And then you go to school, they don't teach you about that. Well,
absolutely not.
So then you don't realize this stuff until you're like 30, when you got a mortgage and stuff, and you're like, well, how can I make some extra money?
Yeah.
By then you think, all the money I spent on shoes and clothes in high school and party, if I took some of that and I invested it, like how far ahead would I have been around this time?
Yeah, exactly, right? It's having that vision to think ahead, and that's the thing too, is like depending on who you're hanging around with, it can be tough, right? Because as a 19-year-old, a 15-year-old, even a 10-year-old that spends most of his money on Fortnite, which is, I've seen it, bro. Like I go to the church and the youth is all about Fortnite, man, and I'm like, damn, like you guys took this attention and this conviction the way that you do for Fortnite to like anything else that could be productive for you, like give it a year and you'd be a different person. So that's the thing. It's like, I think we all learn differently in that sense. And unfortunately, sometimes that is what it is. Like we just have to kind of get to that point and realize like, wow, I could be making better decisions and make it that way for sure. But I think getting back to the timeline though, like even though, it's been out for just over a decade, understand that the potential is still huge. And I'll put it in terms of numbers. So right now, if you go and take a look at the value of Bitcoin itself, like in totality, so there are, I believe, somewhere between 18 million Bitcoin floating around, right?
Somewhere around there.
It's actually a lot less, because a lot of the Bitcoin that was initially mined, people just lost it. You know what I mean? So like we're talking about the wallets, right? So if you are holding 10 Bitcoin and you lose the password to your wallet, nobody in history will ever get those Bitcoin. So what does that do to the supply? That reduces the total circulating supply, which automatically increases the price of the total circulating supply. So I think theoretically there's somewhere like, in actuality, there's like 14 to 15 million, actually, not 18 million, like how it currently looks like in the numbers, because again, those coins have been lost. Right. So let's say, okay, 14 million, but whatever. The point is, each Bitcoin being worth $48,000 USD right now gives you a total valuation. So multiply the price times the amount of Bitcoin in circulation, that gives you the market capitalization. which is about 900 billion, just under a trillion.
Yeah.
So that's about, and that sounds like a big number too, right? Like it is a lot of them. But if you start to compare Bitcoin to a lot of the other markets, one most commonly compared to is gold. So what do you guys know about gold?
It used to be worth a lot. Not so much. I know if you go, you can spend a lot of money and buy it, but then you take it back to them and they give you
nothing.
Less than a quarter. That's what I do.
Right?
But it is still good to hold because it's so far it's been like the longest currency really. Like when you kind of think of it.
Exactly. That's the thing. Actually, a lot of people, if you look it up, it's actually referred to as God's currency because in our history of humanity, gold and precious metals have been the ones that have mostly translated to value in every single culture, right?
Yeah.
So that's why a lot of they're called gold bugs, the people that live for it or whatever, or die by it. They'll be like, oh, gold is forever, like stack it. So I actually owned a little bit, but the thing is, compared to the value proposition that Bitcoin is offering, bro, like it's not even. It's like we may as well bring like a knife to a gunfight. Like it doesn't make sense. But getting back to the market capitalization, so the market cap for Bitcoin is 900 billion currently. It was actually a little bit higher. We experienced a recent dump that lowered the total market capitalization. It corrected about 15 to 20%. Total market cap for gold. So the total market cap for gold right now, so if we stack all the gold in the world or whatever and turn it into US dollars, you're looking at about 10 to 11 trillion dollars in terms of value. So now try to connect the dots. I just told you that Bitcoin is inherently more valuable than gold because you can do more with it, right? And this is just Bitcoin. I'm not even talking about any of the other cryptocurrencies. There's like 4,000 ones. But if Bitcoin right now is 1/10 the price in terms of market cap of gold, would it make sense for you to think that one day Bitcoin will not only match that market cap but exceed it?
Yeah.
And now thinking about it that way, what would Bitcoin have to do? Well, you have to multiply the value of it. So right now, I just told you one Bitcoin is worth about $48,000. In order for the market cap to, let's say, get to gold, let's say we match the market cap for gold, you're looking at about, so from 900 billion to $10 trillion, let's round it up, 1 trillion to $10 trillion, it's 10 times, right? 1 times 10 equals 10 trillion. So by doing that, we would have to do a 10 times whatever the current price of Bitcoin is.
Yeah.
So I told you it was 48,000.
Cool.
What's 48,000 times 10?
A lot,
right? It's a lot. It's a lot. Let me open up the calculator so we can. I mean, you could do 50,000. Let's do 50,000 times 10. That's $500,000. So in order for Bitcoin to get to the equivalent value of gold in terms of total market cap, and that again, just to get to it, you're looking at a Bitcoin that's worth about $500,000. So I just told you that Bitcoin inherently has more value than gold. Imagine if it doubles or triples what the market cap for gold is. So let's say all of a sudden Bitcoin is actually worth more in terms of that sense. If you multiply it by 20, which would double the market cap of gold, then all of a sudden you're looking at $1 million Bitcoin. Right now, these valuations seem absolutely nuts, right? Like how does this make sense? But it makes sense because when we were sitting at $600 Bitcoin, $1,000 Bitcoin, $10,000 Bitcoin, $20,000 Bitcoin, everybody was the same. It's like it can't go any higher. It doesn't make sense. It's a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
$48,000 is not a Ponzi scheme right now. $48,000 can do a lot of things in society, especially if you consider the fact. I don't know if you guys know, but like Mr. Biden and Trump, they actually printed a shitload of stimulus money. They gave away a lot of money to people. They gave a lot of money to governments to keep them afloat. By doing that, inflation is going way up, right? The markets in itself, and I mean, I don't know if you have gone to buy groceries recently. Maybe track your bills. You know what I mean? This is where the people start to hurt, right? Because they start to see, holy crap, like my money's not, wages aren't going up.
No.
Right? So these are the things where like I have dove into this, and I actually really like doing this because I feel like you begin to really understand what is going on around you. Why is it that, I don't know, the price of lumber has, I think 300% since last year? Or why is it that corn is now like 4 times more expensive? Why are people interested in cryptocurrency? Well, because it's a good alternative, a better alternative than gold. So this is where you start to see the opportunities, and you can choose to spend the money on them J's, which are fire, or the Yeezys that the breads.
Especially those Yeezys. Nope, he making some ugly shoes, man. I mean, I love Kai, but
yeah, no,
some of the shoes just and the slippers. Who's
Did you
buying
see the slippers, bro? What is that? Man's losing it.
The inflation is already crazy, and imagine what's going to be in the next year or so when this whole thing goes away. Like you were saying, like with lumber.
Yeah.
The other day we went to buy plywood.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you saw that, eh?
What plywood like last year before last was it?
Yeah, it's about 2 years ago.
Yeah, a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago. It was like $9.80 something.
Yep.
Now it's like $40. Like
it would have been worth less than $10, right? Something.
Yeah,
like
it was like 9 something.
Yep.
Like it's crazy. Like I don't know.
So this is where, when you start to become aware of these things, all of a sudden you can start to make some seriously good, educated decisions. Now, if you would have bought Bitcoin last year, or you would have bought stocks last year when it dipped, even, I don't know if you guys remember, even oil, like they were paying people to just take the oil. So basically free, and you were getting paid.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden these things start to make sense. You can start to work on this, and maybe you can eventually afford the house that you want to buy. Because I know, like, for my generation and the following generation, like we're pretty screwed financially, right? Like we're getting really crap jobs. The value of the wages is not anywhere close in terms of actual value compared to like our parents. The whole system in a lot of ways is working against us. So I mean, it's almost like Darwinism. It's like the smartest and fittest continue. Well, this is an opportunity for you to take advantage of that, almost like out of a necessity to actually survive in a way. But that's the reality. That's the situation we're living in. And you mentioned like lumber prices, like housing, bro. Housing is crazy.
Yeah. So imagine how much it's going to be now. Everything went up. It's already bad.
It's crazy. How is the average house price in Toronto? I think it officially went over $1 million in the past month. It was somewhere between like $1,045,000 to $1,065,000, something like that. Yeah. Even if you have a power couple, like I was looking at that, I'm like, okay, let's say you're a couple that makes a minimum of $100,000 to $150,000 a year, which I would feel that's a pretty good living.
Not anymore.
Yeah, no, it's not.
But not anymore. How can you do that?
140?
No, I think it's actually higher than that. Like I think they were even saying like 150,000 is not even enough now to live in Toronto. You have to make more than that, like way more than that.
It's something like 140 is considered, was it middle class or whatever? But I don't really believe
middle class.
Yeah,
that's wild.
That's crazy.
That is, because you're supposed to not only survive with that, but then and then think about kids. How are you supposed to have kids in this sort of scenario when basically daycare is worth just as much as your mortgage, if not more, if you have multiple kids, right? So it is kind of crazy. I remember like one of my thinking was there are countries that incentivize people to actually have kids by paying them to have kids. I'm like, if Canada doesn't do that, I'm not having kids. Like, there's no point.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. But I don't know if you guys had any more questions with regards to like cryptocurrency that you wanted to dive a little bit deeper. I don't know if maybe that's a lot of that made sense, or you had like a little bit of a doubt somewhere in between.
Yeah.
It did take me a while before I understand this.
Yeah, we were watching a documentary last night. I was trying to explain some stuff to her because I'm still learning it. Because I actually just started buying some like about a week ago or so.
Oh shoot! Okay, so the best questions. So where are you buying it, and like what type of cryptocurrency are you getting into?
What is the name of that thing again? It's a Canadian app, anyways. Dasio, whatever, something like that.
Okay.
Someone was telling me about Binance. Or a few friends I know use the other one. So I'm like, you know what? Let's just try this. Like, people I know are already using it. So we've been checking out like Doge, XRP,
Doge,
Litecoin. Like 2 or 3 of it.
Litecoin's a solid coin.
And all that. For me, I'm like, you know what? If I get a little bit of every,
I just don't know the names of these things.
Oh, there's a lot of them. There's a lot.
That's the funny thing is when it's really hard to speak to people seriously about like serious money, because you think about, again, going back to like the Microsofts, the Googles, the whatever, Apples, like these are serious companies, right? So like obviously when you're talking about, okay, I bought shares from Microsoft or Tesla for that matter, people take you seriously. But when you're going out here telling people that you bought tokens from a project called Uniswap, which represents a unicorn. It's like you're in fantasy land. There's one that's
what are you talking about?
like, what type of drugs are you doing? Let me in on that.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm hopefully Dogecoin blow up, so that'll be a decent little change.
Oh shoot! You saw
up and down and over. Yeah.
You saw apparently like if you would have bought it just on January alone, you would have seen a 40x. So whatever you put in, it would have gone up 40 times.
Yeah.
That value, which is again, it's crazy. But again, this is crypto, and one of the things that I've learned with it, and there's a strategy that I think is the best. None of this is financial advice. I just don't want to get sued. None of this is financial advice. But from what I've come to understand is that one of the best strategies that you can do is just dollar cost average. Take a little bit of your paycheck, take a little bit of whatever, and just buy it either bi-weekly or monthly or spread it across. So that way you don't actually go all in one shot and potentially, like even now when people tell me, I'm really interested in this project, I let them know, I just want you to know you're buying at all-time highs. Like this is the highest crypto has ever, like the crypto market as a whole has ever been. So we don't know if it's going to maintain. We don't know if it's going to continue to go up potentially, or it could do an 80% correction because we have seen that, right? So this is the wild west. But if you spread it across, say for instance, it drops down tomorrow 80%, all of a sudden Bitcoin's now worth, I don't know, $10,000. Now because you decided to spread it across throughout the year, now you can buy Bitcoin at $10,000 instead of having gone in today at 48,000. You would be kicking yourself in the face tomorrow, right? So that's one of the things that I recommend. Trying to get a high level understanding of the projects that you're in is also important, in my opinion, because then in that sense you can get a better idea as to like why you're holding it and what's the long term, right? Because I'll be honest with you, besides Bitcoin and Ethereum, every other coin, there's a reason they call them shit coins. It's because their utility hasn't fully been proven. Like it's potential, but you're investing in potential. You're not really investing in that real utility because these numbers are too small for real utility. Apple has real utility. Microsoft has real utility. Bitcoin right now has a real utility in terms of holding value. That's why people like it. Ethereum, which is the second biggest and most known cryptocurrency, has utility because think of it like as a supercomputer. Like it's a cryptocurrency that is really pushing the edge in terms of technology. Just think of it like that, I guess. Doge is a good example. It's one of those exceptions because when Doge was made, Doge is a cryptocurrency that, to be honest, the technology is pretty shit. Like it's pretty bad. But the thing is, people love it and fell in love with it because it's an internet coin. It's like a meme. It's like, remember 9gag? Like people like that, right? These things spread like wildfire. I think it's the same thing with like Instagram clout. That's why people like it. They're naturally attracted to it. The general population is attracted to it.
Yeah.
And that being the case, this has pushed the price up. Now it could continue to go up, but just know that the technology is really, really garbage. Mind you, Elon Musk said he was going to literally put it on the moon. So if that happens, I would expect the price to continue to go higher.
Yeah, it's crazy because everyone keeps telling me, "Oh, yo, buy Doge, man." Like all my friends that are actually into it, they're like, "Yeah, man, make sure you buy that Doge."
Yeah, like, okay, full disclosure, I hold it too.
Yeah,
like,
I was like, you know what? I don't really fully know the actual use of it, and that's where you kind of determine what to buy, what to hold on to, because it's like, does it just exist, or is there an actual purpose to this?
Right.
What are we going to use this for?
So out of all the projects, there's a website that I like to go to that tracks everything in terms of like the values. It's called Live Coin Watch. There's other ones too. You can go to Coin Market Cap is also another one. But I like this one. Alive, someone that I mostly have used, and it'll show you, from top to bottom, like what's the most expensive coin versus, and not in terms of individual token value, but in terms of market cap. Because again, like that's the market cap is the total value in US dollars of the project. So Bitcoin again is the top. It's the king. Like there's no debating it. Ethereum is a second, and then you get all the other ones. So what I like to do is, especially also if you're new, I would suggest checking out the top 10. Look at the top 10. Do a little bit of a deeper dive into the top 10. The other ones, they have potential, but again, it's like you don't really know, especially as a retail investor. And again, if you don't really have the time to do that, why make your life more burdensome by going into projects that potentially have no value? So I would suggest just the top 10. For instance, you mentioned Litecoin. Litecoin's a really cool coin because Litecoin's actually the preferred currency for the dark web,
yeah,
like the dark markets. They like to use that coin
that.
for, you know what I mean? It's crazy,
but a couple years ago.
Yeah, buddy, like the Silk Road. I don't know if you heard of that.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago. But that being the case, Litecoin actually has a really solid team working on it,
Yeah.
a development team. So they actually are supposed to introduce a privacy feature very soon, which is going to make it a public coin and a private coin, which means I can send you Litecoin, whatever, and it can be fully anonymous.
Yeah.
Which is, there's a lot of power in that, right? Like, again, regulation is something to keep in mind for this type of thing. I hold another one called Monero, which is also a private coin, knowing that if at any point the government could be like, we're not going to allow it, it's illegal to send payments like this, right? Because it enables certain nefarious activity. But yeah, Doge is a go. Cardano is a great project that I've been hearing a lot of great things about. I recommend. So you spoke about Binance. Dive deeper into Binance, man. That's where I do most of my trading. The reason I say that is because if you look at the statistics, Binance has, like, in terms of the totality of the trades and the you know, in terms of exchanges and how much volume is being moved, Binance is like the king. Like they hold something like 40% of the total exchange volume, right? So that says a lot about them. They have had some issues with the regulation aspect in the United States. So they're but luckily we're in Canada, so we don't have to worry about it too much. But I did, even like on my Instagram, I mentioned that the Canadian transactions, like for credit cards and debit cards, the banks are just not allowing transactions anymore. So I can't use my credit card on Binance. There's other ways. I won't get into it, but like there's other ways that you can fund it.
Yeah. You can buy that stuff. Travel, you know, somewhere else.
Just hit me up for a one-on-one. And
I don't know if it's worth it.
yeah. But no, keep in mind, Binance is definitely one of those really good, solid projects, because it's kind of like, think of it like a bank, but it's a crypto bank.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of people don't like it because it's centralized, but there has been a lot of progress. Actually, one of the tokens that I've been talking a lot about is related to Binance. It's called Cake. I'll give you a brief, like, quick sort of features thing. Cake is a token that they are using to enable basically their own blockchain. Remember how I was telling you about the blockchain technology?
Yeah.
So think of it like, again, like phones. Like they have their own. Bitcoin is its own. Ethereum is its own. Cardano and Doge is its own. They're all different, like, blockchains. So Binance has their own that they've been working on. They literally, I'm not gonna lie to you, they copied and pasted the Ethereum one. That's it. They just copied it and pasted it, because you can do that.
The Ethereum one is pretty solid, like,
and it's pretty solid, right? But the problem with Ethereum is that so Ethereum right now is worth $2,300. If I wanted to send you one Ethereum, the transaction cost, unfortunately, right now, it can be very expensive, because they're still figuring out that part of the network, because they have not they did not anticipate for the growth in terms of volume. So if I send you that one Ethereum worth $2,300, I think it could cost anywhere from $10 up to, I've seen people pay $90 for one transaction. That's ridiculous. But remember, there's people that hold 100, 200, 300, a million Ethereum, like a lot of Ethereum. They don't care, right? This is nothing. But so the reason I'm saying this is because Binance has their own, and they have made it so that the exchange transaction fees, the transaction fees are basically $1, right? So this is bringing a lot of people into that space. Actually, they're stealing a lot of potential clients and projects from Ethereum in that sense. My Cake token that I bought at roughly $10 has essentially 3x'd to about $30. So, you know, let's say I put in $500. Now that $500 is worth $1,500, right? In a matter of like 2 months, putting it simply. So when you look at it, these projects, Cake is like project number 45 or something. I think it might be 40 now that it bumped up a little bit. But that's the thing, is like, if you have the time to go into it, there's a lot of different YouTubers and stuff. Understand them, but also try to see if you can understand and dive into the technology a little bit, because the technology is very telling of where the project may be going. Going back to Doge, maybe out of pure clout, it's actually going to make it to $1. Who knows? But in terms of technology, I really don't know, because it's a pretty shit coin. Like, you know, but it's still in the top 10. So, I mean, I'll let you guys talk. Sorry, I've been talking for a while. This is
it's your time, man. You shine. You're a crypto guy. Just started dabbling in this stuff, so cool. Just trying to understand it, because I already have like a notebook with a bunch of them okay,
cool, man.
When it came out, who did it? What's the use? What is the chances of it going anywhere? That way, easier to just make a decision. Okay, this makes sense, but still get a little bit of everything just in case. Because
absolutely,
I mean, Doge was made as a joke. It's like now it's top 10. Like really? So now you just don't know.
It's so true, and that can happen. Any of these coins can really, go from 0 to 100 or from 100 to 0. Right?
Yeah,
like that's the reality of this space. If you can stomach 80% drops in value, you're ready for 1,000% gains, right? Like that's a whole kind of saying in this space, and even in general, right? Because like we've been talking about crypto, but the stock market is similar in that sense.
Yes.
I'm not a fan of the stock market because I'm not a fan of the way the government runs their financial institutions. I think they're doing the best they can. I just don't think it's efficient. And on that note, I don't know if you guys remember last year, but basically the government has the ability to shut down the stock market whenever they want, right? Which happened like 3 times last year. Mm-hmm. So the manipulation in these markets is very real. And this is just the stock market. Like, you can dive into, the oils, or I guess it would be the commodities. The manipulation is real. Not to say that crypto isn't manipulatable, because it is. There's a lot of people that have a lot of money that will just, make money this way. The thing that I like about it is that, let's say, for instance, you guys are a couple. If Paris decides to one day buy 1 Bitcoin right now, let's say you buy a Bitcoin, 10 years from now, as long as one of you holds those keys, literally no one else can take it away from you. Like the government can't, like they can try, they can be like, okay, I'm going to take you to court or whatever, but they can't physically take that Bitcoin from you. Right. And this is powerful, dude, because like when you think about it in terms of like, for instance, if like this is my house, drug dealers are a good example, right? Like they get seized and possessed of all of their stuff, all their money, and that's gone. That's government's. But if something happens, the government can't really access, or anybody else for that matter, can't really access it because you're the only ones that have access to it. Like you are the only ones that have that password to say. Obviously, if you get hacked, and that's a totally different story.
Yeah, or they take your
that's security. Yeah.
I've seen the movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You got the computer like.
What were we watching last night? They said like I guess they caught someone somewhere where they banned it or something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because they were showing like a map of how many different places where they just outlawed it like completely. So they were like staring at it like your electrical grid. So wait a minute, this guy's using a lot of electricity. So they come to your house and search. Oh, you got all this equipment you're mining.
Jeez.
They took some laptops from some people.
Yeah.
And they got their passwords.
Oh man.
So they had it. Problem is, some folks in the confiscation room were trying to sell it.
Oh, correct.
I guess they didn't understand it fully that it was totally traceable.
Yeah.
So they got caught.
Jeez, man, that's crazy. Yeah, you start to hear all sorts of stories, right? Like I know enough people who have basically, because it's very automated, it's very systematic. Way back when Bitcoin was starting and Litecoin and stuff, you do have websites that kind of act like banks where they'll loan you cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
But through these means, you can potentially take advantage. So I had a friend who ended up acquiring, I don't know how many Litecoins or Bitcoins, I forget the exact amount, but it was through something where it's like it was paying him every time he was doing something on the website. It was a small amount. So all he did is just he kept repeating it and repeating it and repeating it. And then all of a sudden they found out, but he was able to move those coins away. Now there's this serious thing where it's like the FBI and like all the feds, they already know which wallets, remember we were talking about wallets, which wallets are known to be involved in nefarious activity. Yes. So if you interact with those wallets at all, it's like you may as well put a red flag on your house. Like they know. Exactly.
Any interaction with, when it comes to the feds, you're under investigation right away.
Oh yeah, absolutely, no doubt about it. So that's one of those things where this is a good space for you to make a lot of money, but anything can happen. Anything is possible, in this space for sure. Yeah. A lot of information.
Wow, I gotta get your notepad.
Seriously.
Yeah, for sure.
Going over my head.
No, it's all good. It's a pretty, like, that's the one thing is like it is a pretty complicated space to get into, especially because the thing is I went to school for computer systems, right? So like I have an understanding of like that kind of background technology aspect to it. And now after that, I worked I am working at a bank, and at the bank I was able to get that financial kind of like understanding of it. So and it's basically like those two things kind of combined, and that's why I'm able to to really understand this space to a certain degree a lot better than most people. But I think just getting started and keeping it simple for like the retail investors, people who are, you know, just diving into the space, is, you know, the best thing in the space is when people are coming together, because they're beginning to see the real utility for it, right? Like, and that's the same thing with everything else. It's like it's cool that, you know, Amazon can offer, you know, Amazon Prime, and you have this utility of being able to order online and it comes the next day, right? Like, especially in these times of COVID, there's real utility in that. So but you don't necessarily have to know, you know, warehouse logistics, or you don't have to necessarily know, you know, who the members of the board are or whatever. You just know that the utility is there. So it's kind of trying to like find that space for the retail investors, and just, you know, understanding that space there. That's why I was saying, like, if any questions that you have in general, like, definitely feel free to, you know, approach me, or even if it's like at any time, because I know these questions sometimes like just come up out of nowhere and it's like, oh shoot, like, why is it like this? Just, you know, feel free to message me, and I'm down.
Yeah, because the thing is, like, even for me, like, doing electronics, like going to school for electrical and all that stuff, it's like, it can seem like a lot, because, like, you think about it, like, you got to do an apprenticeship for 5 years. So it's a lot of different levels to get your license and do all that stuff. But it seems more difficult when it's something you can't really see. And that's where a lot of people find it, man, I just can't get it. But if you know, do a lot of different comparisons for like similar things to make it easy to understand, it's not so bad. But it's just finding what to compare it to, because you can't see it. Because, like, electricity, you know, it's there. The light's there, but how does it work? What do you need?
Exactly.
You know, a lot of people just like, I don't understand. I can't see it. So it's difficult for most people to say, okay, yeah, I get it. But usually, like you said, if you take the time and you actually look it up and get a little idea and be able to compare it, then you can see, okay, yeah, I understand. It's like watching The Matrix or something. Like, yeah, I understand the codes and all that stuff.
Just in The Matrix.
Yeah, you just gotta find certain things to compare it to like visualize it.
Yeah, exactly. And in that sense, like, and I would say it does take a little bit of effort, from an individual's part to try to be open-minded to this space. But again, I think I go back to what I was saying before, is like, it's that education that really empowers you to make better decisions in the future, right? But you don't have to know everything about it. I think just, and to an extent, keeping it simple is maybe good enough for a lot of people too, right? Like, not everybody has to be an engineer to, like, I don't know, turn on the light or like whatever, you know what I mean? Like, so, yeah, in that sense, like, not everybody has to be like a stockbroker to invest in stocks. Yeah, that concept baffles me. Like, I know a lot of people, you know, who seek their financial aids, and, like, you know, they're paying the banks to invest their money. Like, to me, it baffles me, man, because, like, I can't be paying people to tell me where to put my money, man. Like, but a lot of people, like, that's convenient for them, so I understand it. It's just like, that's me.
I think it's how it was like set up though, because like I said, like I was saying before, it's like before it would seem like it was so difficult to do. You needed so much money, and it's like, wait a minute, you mean I could have just opened an account by myself, or I could have just went to a bank, open an account, and just put some money in there and choose what I want to buy? And it's but
that's the thing.
The information just wasn't there.
And that's where, you know, you all of a sudden that information empowers you.
Yes.
Now, if you want to build the same type of portfolio, so like if you're talking about, you know, mutual funds, for instance, like a mutual fund based on, I don't know, like the S&P 500, for instance, the top performing stocks in the stock market or whatever, you literally can do that yourself. You don't have to go to someone, pay them a fee, because that's basically what you're doing, is you're paying them because you're saying you don't know, right? But if you go, you do it yourself, that money that you could have paid them, now you can put into your own portfolio, and then from there manage your own thing. And that, I think, makes you much more I don't know, just capable, I guess, right? And
a little bit more self-sufficient, you know.
Exactly.
A little more empowered. Because I watched a documentary a couple of years ago, because I'm like, I need to understand this stuff, but I just really never had the time until like the last few weeks. I've been trying to. So about 3-4 years ago, I watched a documentary, and they were talking about it, like them using it in Africa, especially like Lagos.
Oh yeah,
so
yeah.
They're like, you know what? Our main reason for pushing for this is, well, we live 2 hours away from the bank. Our electricity works on something where you got to pay. You can pay like by your phone and all that. I mean, for me to pay my bill, I don't need to leave home for 2 hours to go to a bank to get money or put money in to pay. With crypto, it's right here. Just like the ID's there. I can just pay, and it's good.
Yep.
Because a lot of people live in rural areas. I mean, how do you get your stuff done?
Yeah.
Exactly. So I love that example, because think of the value that you are creating kind of out of nowhere, right? Out of nowhere. It's just you don't see it. So for the person that is living in these rural areas in Africa or in any other nation that maybe doesn't have the same resources, even here, I could say potentially in Canada too, where if you are away or distant from that infrastructure, and that's what the nation depends on, like for the individuals to actually process their payment, pay their mortgage, if that's the case, or whatever it is, that 2-hour trip turns into 4 hours because you got to get there and back. Not only is that time,
oh my god,
right? That's crazy.
Yeah.
It represents time. It represents money, because that sure isn't going to be free, right? I think we've all seen gas prices go up. Maybe it's the same over there. And not only that, think about if you got to take cash. If you got to take cash, now this is turning into a threat, because I think you guys know, coming from down south, like these are not necessarily the safest places, right? Like I know back home, walking around with more than, I guess the translation for like dollars to pesos would be something like 1,000,000 pesos, or like 2 million inflation. But basically, if you're walking around with a lot of cash or fiat, that's dangerous, right? Because if someone comes over, now all of a sudden you can't. So think about that. Like there are people who go 2 hours. Let's say they get jumped before they get to the bank. Not only have they lost like their entire day, they lost the payment for what they needed to do. Now this turned into like an entirely complicated, scenario for this person.
Yes.
You have basically stop this person from being able to be capable and productive in their society at this point. And this is the thing that governments don't understand, is like the more enabled and capable your individual members of society are, the more productive you as a country are going to be. And a good example in comparison would be, these nations like Canada and the US versus nations like Argentina, or even Japan for that matter. I was watching a documentary that was talking about one of the reasons these countries have been able to actually grow and become powerhouses is actually because of credit, because they enable businesses to borrow money at low rates, knowing that in the future they'll be able to pay it back and they'll have a business. So people can live off of that. Yeah, I don't have it now, but I'll work towards it. In nations like Argentina, Japan, these nations have a hard time financially prospering because interest rates become so high. When interest rates are so high, basically, you're kind of telling your people, okay, if I don't have anything, I'm never going to have anything. I'm not going to do anything. That's what you're doing, literally, right? So that's something to keep in mind. But going back to your example, that's a great example. I have another example that happened similarly in Venezuela, and same thing. There's a cryptocurrency called Dash. It was very popular about 3 years ago. Not as much anymore. Still relevant, but what happened? Are you guys familiar with the situation in Venezuela by any chance, or like how things are like?
Actually,
no, I'm not.
They kind of mentioned it a bit last night on the documentary, but not a whole lot.
Not a whole lot. Okay, I can summarize it. Basically, in the 90s and leading up to the 90s, petroleum prices exploded, right? This is why you have things like Saudi princes that have like, the Lambos, and, they got bear money. These guys got decked out with gold. But the thing is, Venezuela is actually, if I'm not mistaken, they might have the biggest oil reserves of any nation. They're first or second. Like they have
they're definitely like top 3 or something.
They have a lot of, sorry, not gold, oil. May as well be gold. But basically, because they had so much, they were actually a very capitalist society back then. They were a much better country than, say, mine is Colombia. So what would happen is, naturally, people from the surrounding countries would start wanting to go to Venezuela. Venezuela was like the United States of South America. Like it was nice. They got the companies, they have the people with like the oil money, whatever. Coming into the later 90s and 2000s, basically Venezuela started to become communist. People, like to live for free, whatever. Point is, they became communist, and this wrecked their entire everything. Like they wrecked their finances, it wrecked their government. The government is still communist, but the people are living terribly, which we have seen in a lot of other countries. We've seen this happen with the Soviet Union. We've seen this happen honestly in China to a certain extent. Communism is not necessarily the greatest way of running a country. I would say it's pretty bad. But anyways, the point is, leading up to now, when you have financial ruin, you begin to have something called hyperinflation, right? Do you guys know what hyperinflation is? Yeah. So when you begin to have all of these money, cash money, whatever, floating around, this is a system where you basically can't exchange. It's worthless. You can't exchange goods for cash. So what people started to do is they started to use cryptocurrency, Dash. And the cool thing about that, just like how you were saying, they were able to connect to the network over text messages, and they could send each other value. It's just text message, SMS. Like, how powerful is that? I could, the same way that I tell my girl, like, hi, how are you, baby? Like, I could also be like, here's some money. Have some money. You know what I mean? Isn't that a powerful thing? Like, that is such an amazing thing. And this allows the banking of the unbanked, which means that the millions, if not billions, of people in the world who don't have access to bank accounts, but do have access to phones, because realistically now most of the people do have access to phones, can all of a sudden become way more productive in society and can actually live the lives that we're living, that we take for granted here. You know, like how we take water for granted, or we take, I don't know, car for that matter, right? But you reminded me of that example, and this is where you really start to see the value of cryptocurrency come in.
100%.
Yeah, man. But yeah, I don't know. Do you guys want to dive into anything else, or how are you feeling?
Questions.
It's hard, right?
Probably have to rewatch this and then look at another documentary and something.
For sure.
I get it.
Documentaries are good. Documentaries are good.
Yeah, but I think once you start like getting familiar with the terms and the amount of different coins, because there's a lot of them.
I would say there's almost as many terms as there is coins. Yeah, like it becomes, that's one of the things, is like when you begin to kind of understand the language too, things start to make sense. But yeah, diving deeper into it, like, you know, just a little bit a week or whatever.
You can make your own coin too.
You can actually make it. Remember I said copy and paste? You can literally do that. Yeah.
I don't know whether it'll be work, but you can make your own.
Yeah, that's right. It's worth whatever people are willing to pay for it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's like the main thing, like you were saying, like you don't learn that stuff in school or whatever. It depends on who you hang around. So like what I really love in 2020, it kind of showed people how really far back they really are. It's like, how free are you? Like you think you're free until, you know, the country shut down, you can't go to work, you lose your home, like 40 million people jobless. Yeah. The economy hasn't even recovered jobs from 2009 recession. So like, what does that do for you? Yeah. So a lot of people, so that gave birth to a lot of people with like an entrepreneurial spirit. So that was really good. So that, I really like to see that, because it's like, okay, a lot of people are taking the initiative because they realize, hey, you can have your job today. It doesn't matter how nice it is. When stuff shut down, like, what are you going to do? How do you eat? How do you feed your family? It's not like we're on the island. You can, you know, go shoot some fish, you know, go eat some fruits or something. You know, if you don't have a dollar, you have nothing in this place.
Yeah.
So
that's right. Well, there's that whole saying where it's like, weak men are made in good times, and you know, bad times make strong men, right? And this is, I think, what we're seeing. This is, I think, a reflection of what I've been talking with a lot of people about, where, you know, people are starting to hit that wall, realizing that it's like, you know, things aren't as gloomy as they may appear. Oh, I think my mom's coming downstairs. Hold on. Mama, perdón, estoy en un podcast. Sí, dale. Yeah, this is my mom. Sorry. Yeah, see, I'm a millennial living with my parents, because that's how you have to live financially.
Hey, man,
right? You get money to invest.
You're probably going to buy your own island soon or something. Hey, you got to take...
You got to think ahead, right? Sacrifices have to be made. But yeah, in all honesty, like that's, you know, that is the reflection of the situation. And if you look at the statistics, like it's kind of sad, but I guess it makes sense the way that, you know, for instance, when people got their stimulus money, the things that started to sell were TVs. like, well, come on. Well, this is the truth. By us having this conversation, though, like, I commend you guys for starting this, and you know, I hope that you're able to keep it, even if we hit what's known as a bear market, like we dip down, we lose a lot of value. I anticipate us losing a lot of value in cryptocurrency just because it's the nature of the space, but not being emotionally attached to that and just continuing to be consistent. You'll retire. Like, trust me, like, just keep going in that sense, because I've seen it. I've seen how it has changed my life in that way. And by continuing that consistency, it's different. But if you become emotionally attached to the prices, where, and this is what I was saying, it's like dollar cost average. Don't go all in at once, because emotionally it can be really frustrating. If you go and buy a $50,000 Bitcoin and tomorrow it's worth 10,000, like, you know, and that was your life savings, that's tough. Like, that's tough, right? It's different if you have $1 million and you went all in with, or not all in, but you bought one, right? That's the ratio is of the quantity is different. But yeah. Oh, there's my mom again.
Mama, like Red Riding Hood.
Yeah. You can put that in there. She says in Spanish. I'm sorry.
See. But yeah, man, it's pretty quite interesting.
Yeah,
and
yeah, for sure.
Again, the other thing I also noticed too, since last year, and it's really good to see. I don't know if you might know, you probably might seen them or know of them. You know, there's guys like on Earn Your Leisure,
Okay,
19 Keys, or Derek Grace.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's pretty interesting to see. Like all these guys are just doing podcasts, doing interviews, and sharing financial literacy, investing information. Like they do have something where they do like every Monday they do stock talk. So they show you what's up, what's down, an idea of what may do good, what they invest in, etc.
Okay.
So basically, Earn Your Leisure it's actually one of the top financial platforms right now currently. So it's really nice to see that people are actually giving away a lot of these information for free. Like you just gotta sit down and listen to it. They say the only charge for you is go tell someone else. Because before, like no one was having these type of conversations.
Mm-hmm.
So
it seems that way, right?
That made it even way more difficult.
Yeah.
So you got guys like Derek Grace, like he's really good at like marketing. Like that's what he does. That's a guy that homeschools his kids, serial entrepreneur, board games, robotics, all that stuff. But you would never see or hear about that type of stuff because if you don't look a certain way or you're not from a certain background, you don't get the oh man, he's really brilliant. Like you don't get those kind of ratings. You don't get put in the light shine on you like that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So it's really good to see a lot of people actually interested. And then they're like, hey, if you want to really learn more about this stuff, like we have courses, we're giving you courses for like $50. Like you've seen guys like DJ Envy and Flippin' NJ, they're doing real estate seminars where they're flying people in.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, just book it. We'll fly you out. We're doing a seminar. It's free. Like come and learn about real estate. You see people 23 years old who used to buy all the J's and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And $20K on some new Kanye's or Louis Vuitton. They're buying homes. Like it's really nice to see.
Yeah. Yeah,
absolutely.
So I think that's just the main thing. We need to have a lot more conversation. That's why I love talking to people about just about anything. Because like there's always something to be learned. Like there's no such thing as I know enough. And I think a lot of people are just stuck in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you, and more so, like unfortunately, the reality is more so. Our people like Hispanics and Black people have a really hard time to grasp that longer capability of thinking. Like like they don't think. I feel like our people don't really think about 20 years from now, 30 years from, or multi-generational wealth for that matter. If you want to look at it that way, because the reality of our situation is a lot of our community does suffer. Like they have a different lifestyle. Like we're trying to eat, whereas other people, say for instance like white people or even like Asian people, Jewish people, like they have a different mentality. Like they're just trying to grow and like again intergenerational wealth. Like that's it's a different thing. So like these types of conversations are so important, especially now, because by us being a part of those communities, we help the ones around us grow, right? And this is one thing that I've really stressed during my time, and this is why like I don't charge for this stuff. Like to me, it just doesn't make sense, because the more, for instance, the more Paris and his family grows, the more that our community grows, right? Like the selfishness in me, like charging you for this or whatever, like I get it, your time is valuable, but I like to think of it as like we're all growing together, right? And I think our community lacks that a lot, unfortunately. We have that narrow mindset. So for instance, for me, like what I like to do is with the people that I've been meeting up with, I basically ask them, hey, I'm going to request that you literally give our church a Facebook like and like a Google Maps like. That costs you nothing, and it's a request. I'm not asking you like to do it. It's just a request.
Send a church, man. Come on, man. Mario.
Emmanuel Baptist Church East. Let's go. I'll send it to you guys. Absolutely. You can give us a like. Google Maps is huge. I've been helping out with the streaming with them. It's been going really well. We actually just got some lights, so it's starting to look like a disco, but it's for God.
Oh, okay. Friday nights.